Debt Nation, where we are putting death out of a job, out of business. Death is going out of business. And to help us in that mission and the transhumanist mission and the humanist vibe that we've got going on here at Debt Nation, it's Dr. Catherine, better known as Catatrix, all coming all the way from Cyprus. Now, tell us, how is Cyprus? How is the weather there? I saw a water spout, a water fountain, a water hurricane thing. Are you safe? Are you? Who's coming after you? Neptune?
First of all, hello to Australia and hello world and transhumanists all over the world, and greetings from Aphrodite's beautiful island of Cyprus. Well, that was just like last week. Last week we had hurricanes and an actual tornado in the sea, and now we're back to like 30 degrees Celsius. So now we're back to t-shirt and short weather, so which is our normal climate. It's this climate change. It's terrible.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing. Climate change is a real thing, and it's happening all over the world. And it's, I mean, you know, if you denied it and you lived in California, most of those people are running away now. So, you know. So, you know, it's happening all over the world, and people are starting to wake up. And you got a divide. You've got the Greta Thunberg types who are freaking out. You've got the Extinction Rebellion people who are, you know, going a bit crazy. But on the other side, you have big oil, big pharma, big corps, you know, who are just still pounding the legislative assemblies, you know, with their lies and their propaganda, and they're saying, oh, it's cold outside, how can it be global warming or cooling or whatever. It's just so annoying, and we need technological solutions and technological innovations, and we need them now. But more than that, we need people to wake up to these solutions, because Cyprus is an interesting country. It was at the center of the world, geographically at least, of a lot of the ancient world. I mean, a lot of the ancient world ran around you. You know, you got Rome there, you got all the Fertile Crescent down below, you've got Egypt, which is probably the oldest, most continuous civilization ever. And I know you're familiar with Egypt.
Cleopatra actually came to Cyprus. It's written in the history books. So yeah, I actually live on top of an underground city. So the village I live in is where the kings and the queens used to live. So it was the kingdoms here. So yeah, it's very, very old, very ancient, very powerful island. And we had perfect weather all year long. And now with climate change, it's just getting scary. It's terrible to be driving down the street and all of a sudden there is a tornado. That's crazy.
It's going to turn into... You know, Atlantis used to be there, and then it's not, and they reckon it's in the Mediterranean somewhere. What do you reckon? Cyprus is going to go the same way as the mythical Atlantis?
Well, we dug up something. If you were to see all the things that were discovered here and protected historically, it's just incredible. So, yeah, it's... And for a very tiny island, more and more things keep getting discovered. So it's very interesting to be here. It is.
Yeah.
Although I've been many countries all over the world. Love them all. And well, I just I deal with high tech technology, and I'm always inventing, and I'm always around anything high tech. But I like to live like my great grandmother. So I'm here with the trees and the old stone-built house and the courtyard, and I got my own lemon trees and olive trees, and you know, I just pick my own stuff and eat it. So,
yeah. I find that's
now that I can.
I find that's a common theme with transhumanists is. It's kind of like the new hippie movement, right? So you've got like all this high technology stuff, and people talk high tech all the time, but at the same time, there's this sort of return to nature feel. It's sort of the new 1960s hippie movement. I mean, you know, talk high tech, but live almost low tech, but integrate that tech in a beneficial way. It's kind of nuts. Return back to the body and enhance the body.
Well, yeah, but I do believe that the only way we can understand future technology is to understand the technology of the ancients. So, I mean, the ancients had everything intact, and we just need to go back to the source in order to understand what we need for the future, technical wise. and that's how I came to discover what I've invented.
And
So
we're gonna bust into Autismo in a second, because Autismo is your big groundbreaking invention. But I just want to do a quick tribute to inventors, because I've been, since I've been talking to you for a while now, I've been reconsidering in my mind the imagination and the vision of the inventor, and how important they are in society. And it's I say there's a blurry line between spirituality and entrepreneurship, because it takes a lot of effort to put a system into place, a business system, hard as it is. But if you have enough capital, you can almost just force any business system into life, even if it's not so profitable. If you run a really big company or a government, you can sort of force a business system. So it's not as amazing. But the inventor, absolutely, because they're creating a contraption or a device from literally the brain waves that are just inhabiting our head. They formulate, they see a gap in the market, or they see a problem, or they see some sort of deficit somewhere, and in some cases not even a deficit. Sometimes it's just far future thinking, like Dyson spheres or something, that isn't even conceivable, and yet they come up with these amazing devices, or they have to go through all of the engineering and everything. It's just the most incredible thing. I think inventors are like the backbone of society, and most certainly the backbone of transhumanism.
well, this is why I'm supporting inventors all over the world, and hoping that one day I'll be able to bring awareness to people on how important uh, innovation is. And there are people who have been through a lot to get to where they are, and really have to think differently to get to results. Um, with it, just basically a way of life. It is not something you wake up one day and just think, okay, I'm going to do it. It's a way of life, and inventors are it for a good purpose. They're inventing for these canes for blind people. Let's not forget molecular medicine and chemistry and a lot of other things that are happening in those fields, in biology and biochemistry. It's not just the engineering part. So, they're incredible things that are happening. Mother and daughter team chemists or biochemists creating things for animals so that they sort of like a perceptive substance where they have to spay or neuter animals, for instance. Like, this is incredible going on, and it's a shame that there isn't awareness to make all of this go forward. And I hope that one day, my purpose is to not only know who the real deal is, like who the real inventors are, not only for the world, but let's say a company wants to invest in something or wants to promote something. How do they know where to even find these people? So
Yeah, and there's been a huge
2020. That's my goal.
Yeah, there's been a huge war of the inventor versus the establishment forever. I mean, you're right. You're right when you say that inventors have to overcome a lot, and it's a lifestyle choice. I mean, sometimes, the state forces inventions out. Sometimes they come naturally. Sometimes they come centuries later, because, like Leonardo da Vinci or somebody like that, who came up with so many fabulous things. He was persecuted for that. Or Galileo, an intellectual invention, saying, the sun is the center of the universe, or whatever. But yeah, you're right, and it's so interesting, and there's a blurry line. Now, something that you've been doing is you've been helping autistic people with Autizmo. Autizmo is a kind of interesting. If a robot can chart and measure every emotional experience in an individual's life, and life stories encoded in the DNA, then decode them. Tell us about Autizmo. This is your big crescendo moment.
Okay, and happy to share it, and thank you for this opportunity. Autismo started off as being a translator. I am personally autistic, and I also have savant syndrome, so yay for daily accomplishments, but it really comes in useful as an inventor. So, because it's very difficult for autistic children to communicate with their parents, autismo was originally invented so that mother and child would be able to understand each other. So Autismo basically translates the internal world of a human. And later on branched off to basically anybody who is nonverbal needs their internal world understood, like coma patients, um, deaf children growing up until they learn sign language. Basically anybody who is not able to speak and desperately needs an internal world to be known by their loved ones or doctor or whoever is taking care of them. Now, I've done the same thing for animals. So now I can understand what your dog or cat or horse is thinking and feeling. And I'm going one step further and analyzing trees and plants, especially trees, because they are so old, hundreds of years old, at least the ones we have here. I have some old olive trees that are about 300 years old. And since they have the same cell structure as humans, and well, of course, they have DNA, and determined to decode the story of the tree's life and what it's thinking and what it's feeling. So the started off as little translator, and it turned into not even artificial intelligence, but this is actual intelligence. It extracts all the information from human quanta, animal quanta, and hopefully one day tree quanta. So what a world it would be if you could just like go into a forest and listen to all the stories of happened and why, and incredible. Like, I'm just excited about that. But at the moment, for humans and animals, it is already working. How it works is it come from a molecular and DNA background. So I understand the cause of disease on a cellular level. I treated 20,000 patients in my years as a doctor of molecular medicine, and I wanted to know how what sort of negative thoughts and the emotions, how that makes you sick, right? I mean, there's multidimensional. And so I started doing that in the lab, and that's where I could chart and measure every emotional experience you've ever had and decode and deactivate its negative associations. So that was used for therapy, for trauma, for upgrading your brain, and so forth. And well, in physics and biophysics, understood that the same information is in the quanta. Now, quanta is bundles of light which resonate, which glow from your cells. So the same way photography works, photon meaning light, and Greek meaning graphia, to write. So that image is frozen in time forever and ever, that has all these stories behind it, written in the light. So we've understood how to light and translate the same thing as infrared sensor. So light would also translate to, well, light waves can also translate to heat waves, therefore the logic of infrared. Now, not only can we know the internal world of someone in a robot, you could actually make him react according to that person. So this is starting to be implemented all over the world, and it will be like the base of humanoid robots, because no amount of years of AI programming and machine learning couldn't possibly understand alone the personality of a human. You're getting that information instantly. that's exciting.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, like in Japan, humanoid robots are a big thing. You happen to be familiar with Egypt, and you think that robotics in Egypt is accelerating at a rapid pace as well. But I'm more familiar with the Japanese story, being over here in Asia. Absolutely, there's humanoid robots on the march. If you could if you could understand the internal logic of an autistic person as basically as a translation device, that is, there are, what's the population of autistic people in the world? Do you know the global population?
of global population, I do not know that. Um, Imagine the nonverbal people.
Yeah. Well, let's say a
And
minimum it's a million or more. I think it'd probably be
least,
more. Let's
at
just say
least, I
at a
mean, we're
bare
talking.
minimum it's a million people. That's a million untold stories. You know, there's a national broadcaster here in Australia called SBS, and it has a slogan: 7 billion stories and counting, or something like that. But these people's stories are untold. I mean, these people's stories are locked away inside of these internal worlds, like you say. Their expression is dulled like a light. It's not a bright light. It's a dulled light. So yeah, if you can translate something, that's absolutely important. It kind of reminds me of when explorers go to foreign lands and they can't communicate with the the tribes of those new lands. They have to figure out new methods of communication. I have a stick, you have a thing, we trade. You know, you say, this stands for this. I mean, the communication method is super slow, and you know, maybe these people have knowledge that can save the new explorers or something like that. Something akin to, something akin, because they have local knowledge. And I'm sure that autistic people, autistic savants, or whoever that Autismo is programmed to unlock and unleash, have a lot to say about the universe and the world that surrounds us. What do you say?
Uh, it's just more I understand what Autismo can do, and the more he's doing at present, the more I'm not even aware to what degree he can he can get to, because it's basically a very deep psychoanalysis. It's understanding what is happening now emotionally, what thought process is that person going through, and where it came from. So you get like a behavior, like a crisis, or you don't know why they're screaming, or you don't know, or like even pets, you don't know the behavior of certain pets, or you want to communicate with a pet or your horse or whatever. You can fully understand like where their behavior is coming from.
Yeah, for
So
example, pets react differently to different seasons. You know, like they know when rain's coming instinctively. Birds fly away because they know an earthquake is coming, or something instinctive. It's based in what we call instinct, but there actually might be something larger going on with their neural networks, or their nervous system, or their connection with the earth, or their communication methods between each other, which are yet on a level that we may or may not understand. I mean, we know that birds chirp in the trees and twitter and chirp, and we know that they sort of are communicating, but we're not sure of the consciousness level of that communication. We're not quite sure. We think we have an idea, but the thing is, with science and technology and progress, is that the more we unlock, the more we find out, the more the more we discover, the more we find out we don't know. We just don't know a lot of stuff. And
because I'm an animal lover and a tree lover, and I've lived in the jungle before. So when you live in a jungle and you wake up sunrise, and whether you like it or not when it's sunset, because there's no electricity in the jungle. And you're in that much nature for that period of time. I swear it could, speak to the trees and then they would answer me, or at some point I was lost and asked nature to show me the way, and then the leaves would rustle in a specific order, and then I knew that I had to go that way, and sure enough that was the path. It's just such a special connection when you isolate yourself from modern world and then you emerge into. And trees have helped me throughout the world, throughout my life. I swore that one day I would prove that they feel and they have a history and that they can identify when on. They'll tell the stories of their environment, and I'm hoping to do that in 2020.
Yeah,
because I'm sure of it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's something that's it's not new, because, like, for example, in Lord of the Ring, you have the Ents, okay, and the Ents is a tree. They're basically tree creatures. Those mythical tree creatures in the Lord of the Ring world, and they breathe, eat, live, do whatever they do, and they assist in fighting back against Sauron's armies at one point. I mean, these go to war. It's kind of interesting that even in somebody else's brain in Russia or wherever, whoever wrote Lord of the Rings, I mean, this guy was kind of thinking the same thing. Maybe the trees are conscious, or if not conscious in a really substantial way, they're fun enough to play around with, that in a mythical world they can talk and breathe and eat and go to war and whatever, and create huge forests, the Ents, right? So no, it's an interesting idea. It's a fun idea, and I wouldn't deny it. If you talk to explorers, or if you talk, I mean, history has been set up, and you're right there at the center of history. You understand where the cradle of civilization is, over there in Babylon, in the Fertile Crescent, or down in Egypt. You can see how people sprung up around the harsh environment that it is. But you got the Nile River there, which is fertile. It's primed for life. It's primed for domestication of animals. But because of that sort of harshness, if you go over to Israel, where they were all trying to go, it's kind of the seasons, without advanced agriculture. It's kind of, you've got to run with the seasons, because one day you'll have a bumper harvest, and then the next year you'll have a famine, and you've got to go back to Egypt like the Israelites, marching up and down and round and round. So you can kind of see how civilization has advanced in a way that's kind of been antithetical to nature, because nature's it's been sort of harsh to us as a species, in a way, because we've always been struggling in a way. It's always been us trying to store for the store up food for the next winter, or grow enough grain to survive the next famine or whatever. But if you go to rainforest people and into these components of the forest, that's it's more interconnected, it's more seamless. It's these people definitely do have a connection with the natural environment in a more fundamental way than the people who were building vast stone structures, in coliseums to be entertained. Because the coliseums, it's the reason the gladiator would go in with a lion is because it's the man versus the lion. It's the man versus the antithesis of nature. And I mean, the Romans wiped out, I don't know, half of North Africa's wildlife in those Colosseum games. It's us versus them. It was a test of strength. Well,
what I'm very curious about with trees is, since I can analyze my own trees, since they are on ancient grounds, would the same two trees standing side by side tell the same story, or would they have a different perspective? I mean, two people would see things differently. And also the species of tree. I know in aromatherapy, if you take, like, for instance, I deal a lot with alchemy and the emotional effect a tree resin will give you, or flower, and so forth. So same way that the birch tree. oil shatters illusions. So it would always tell you the truth. Would the birch tree always tell you the truth? Would the cedar tree, cedarwood atlas, it always takes you to a place of beauty. It's very interesting how the different personalities would perceive same place. And since this place has also been through war, it would be interesting to analyze the trees that were the crossfire, let's say, if they would tell. And we could verify that, because I could go through time frames. When I decode DNA, I would know that at 4 years old, this situation, at years old, you had that situation, so forth. So if it's 300 years old, you know, we figure out that back in 1974, there was a war, and we could confirm it. It's really crazy.
What about a lot of a lot of murderers bury bodies in the woods. What do you reckon?
Actually, that's exactly how I got the idea. So I was in England one day because the company that was interested in doing a robot with me, and I was in this like spooky hotel room, old English, crickly boards, and on TV they used a lot of psychics to try to find serial killers. And just one thing led to, if the tree could talk, he would identify who the killer was. Because there have been experiments before where, a plant is abused in front of another plant. And they put a series of people to, come into the room. And then when the guy who killed the other plant in front of that plant comes into the room, that plant just goes off emotionally. It just... these experiments have been done before. So that said, I knew that, and you related it to the tree. I said, well, if you could analyze the tree knows exactly who it is.
Yeah, there's an old saying, if the walls could talk.
Yes. It's just because we have a different way of communicating doesn't mean that there isn't a wordless dialogue between them. In the jungle, you ever see tumors on a tree? You've seen tumors on a tree, yeah? Like a big bump on the trunk of a tree. Now, in Western world, you'll see many of them in a sort of park, yeah? But in the jungle, you'll only see one. And why would you only see one? Is because it communicates to the other trees to protect itself from the virus that it got, so they could protect themselves.
Yeah, and there was a recent article in... I can't remember where I read it, but yeah, it was talking about just the roots of a tree, and how much this is just common knowledge now. But yeah, how much the roots of a tree will talk, how many partners a tree will have, and it's something like 50 or 70, in a forest or something. It's quite substantial. Its number of close colleagues and friends.
Wow, that's incredible. So. And the reason why there are many tumors on many trees and parks is because of the electrical lines and all the electrical interference, where they're not able to communicate properly to each other.
Yeah, and it just really makes you think about we've only got one, like, in a way we've only got one planet that we know of. And therefore, there's only one Amazon rainforest. I mean, until we discover another planet with an Amazon rainforest, there's not much point in ripping it down to put in soybeans or whatever, because you're not going to get it back.
My thoughts exactly. I'm just wondering how everybody's going to go live on Mars. Like, it's how is that possible? I'm trying to make it possible, but yeah, it's incredible. If you've ever been in a jungle, every single thing you eat, drink, it's got all its nutrients. Nothing's been lost. Nothing's been, processed. and you just feel like a tiny little ant in front of all these. I mean, a leaf of a plant was bigger than me. A leaf of a plant. So you can
Yeah.
imagine the trees, and it's just like you just feel like you're, Alice in Wonderland, and you're in some kind of fairy tale story, and you're thinking, wow. Of course, all the bugs are huge as well. So there are no mosquitoes or actual airplanes. You can duck when they come. But it really made me understand how nature communicates, and by the third or fourth day, you've sort of forgotten your modern life and your instincts of a human, a wild survivor human living in nature kicks in.
Yeah, and
And
that's
and it,
embedded deep in all of us, and it sort of it shows up all around. This is the thing that people don't understand. We create our own artificial environments. I mean, you're there on the screen behind London, which is just basically an artificial jungle that we've sort of a new survival mechanism that we've created. It's kind of we've repeated nature in a with glass and concrete because we think we're cool. But yeah, no, it's very interesting. And tell us more about the internal world of autistic people, because there's this mischaracterization that autistic people have disease or they have some sort of
I'll tell you,
neurological disorder. Why is that a
uh,
bad misnomer? Why is that a misnomer?
I would like to say something on that, because I did a lot of research in the last few years. Um, to my surprise, I found something completely different than what I was looking for. I wanted to test brain waves between autist and a non-autist, for instance. Just to have a clue. It's like, why are they? I'm autistic. Why am I functional? Why do I talk too much sometimes? And why am I able to um, control myself and not need the help of other people to survive in this world? Now, what I discovered was there are so many different factors, like if the nucleobasis, the cells are not healthy enough, which they are the transporters of nutrients. Connective tissue isn't intact, which means that brain cannot possibly send a message to the speech sender in order to speak. I don't believe, that's just my personal belief, my research, and being autistic myself, and I'm ready to publish a paper on that, is to there are two different things. There are faulty mechanisms and autism. The difference between having a faulty mechanism, does not allow you motor skills function properly, and then there's being autistic. I will always be autistic, even if my motor skills are fine. That can't change. The brain has no filters. You go into a supermarket and you look for the spice rack and you look at one at a time, right? To stand back because I look at everything at the same time. It's an abstract thinking, it's abstract vision, abstract thinking, abstract. I'll always listen to traffic 100 times more than an average person. That is not going to change. Whether my mechanisms are faulty or not is another story. So I think they're two separate problems. And why does it occur, let's say, in autistic people, is because the brain is just so fast, the body can't keep up with it. It's just, messages going 1,000 miles an hour, and the body doesn't have the right nutrients or mechanisms just to keep up with all that energy. And I've had some close friends that had autistic children, and we said, look, why don't we just add these nutrients that are going to make these cells work better, or whatever that child needed, because every child is, and every person is individual. You can't say like this one thing helps. As a molecular doctor of orthomolecular medicine, I don't see the name of the disease or the disorder. I just say okay, this is wrong, and let's see if we can make it right. Just take what I need to fix and I fix it. I just don't think about what it is. I see what's wrong and I fix it. So fix it, and then let's see what happens. Well, guess what? They start speaking language, two languages, because they're um, are bilingual. And guess what? The genius comes out. Now they're making like helicopters out of Lego that are like, it's insane. And like a year ago, they were like screaming and in crisis and banging their heads on the wall. So, I mean, take away the faulty mechanisms and then see left. How come he wasn't able to do it before? It has nothing to do with autism. I did not take away autism. I just made the body function better and the brain function better with the proper nutrients, you could say. The substances it needs for such a no different than a professional athlete requiring very special and specific high-tech nutrients as opposed to an average person who's just going to lightly exercise. And it doesn't mean that if you give those nutrients that a child who's labeled autistic will show its genius, because I really think that has been misunderstood. I don't believe that faulty mechanisms equal autism and vice versa. It probably just happens more because of the brain-body ratio of energy, but not why am I speaking to you? Why am I able to do that? But yet I have the abilities of an autist and a savant. Normally I shouldn't be able to function at all. Of course, if I don't do all the things I need to do to be balanced and are absolutely necessary for my life, I do see that I'm not able to go through things the same way. And I could have like a total brain shutdown if I don't do all these things. It's just my knowledge of different things and some of my abilities in order to be normal in public. So I have pattern recognition abilities, which means that from the thousands and thousands of people that I've met and seen in my life, I know that if I stand this way and if I act this way and if I this way or whatever, well, I don't care anymore about the dress this way. I mean, I went up to with my inventor's hat and so forth. I know like what's acceptable and what's normal, and I'm using one ability to balance out something that I normally wouldn't have if I didn't use that ability. So it's very tiring through the day on a daily basis. Very tiring. It's like being an actor and acting out
normalcy.
Person in society. You get home and you're exhausted, and then you got all the noise and so forth. And horrible. I can't imagine these poor children who have to go through it without even being able to voice it. So, will become more and more and more advanced in. Wasn't interested in translating, Mom, I need some water, or I'm tired. Those are just obvious things. You need to know, like, why do I have a panic attack? Why do I get a crisis at that time? What? You can't have a panic attack or a crisis unless you've thought of something first, and then another process happens, and then a fear kicks in, and overwhelmed, and then all of a sudden you're in a crisis. It's a process that you go through in order to get that result. Once you know that, then you're not going to get that result anymore. It's going to help. Not the first thing, not to get to the next step. So
Okay.
and sided with the animals. I want to. I'll be coming out with different. You're going to understand your pets much better, and hope to raise awareness for the next generation that dogs and cats do think and feel like we do, and not just like stupid animals. They just language, and we're just translating that language.
You remind me of another one. I'm not sure. Roald Dahl, is it? I don't know. Doctor Doolittle. He was a guy who
Yeah,
could speak to animals, right?
yeah. That was a movie.
Yeah, yeah, well, it's an old book. Yeah, but the premise is this guy can speak to animals, and that the animals know a lot of gossip about everything. I mean, they know what's going on. They know what's going on behind closed doors. They know how people treat each other and how they're treated and how they act in public and all that. You know, so yeah, you're a Doctor Doolittle as well, and I mean, he was an inventor or whatever. So
I didn't think of that, but I think Eddie Murphy did that movie. I think there's an Eddie Murphy movie, Doctor Doolittle, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, I've got animals. They know things. They know how to. It's incredible. They all have their, they each have their personality, and they're each thinking of something, and they all look at me before I leave, and of course, they've got this. I tested my cats first before, I thought, could this like work on like why this cat doesn't ever leave the house, and why this one so like aggressive and so forth. And I found that one of my cats just couldn't accept that their mother left them earlier than they were ready to, and had abandonment issues. And became very aggressive. So I said, well, I'm not going to abandon him also. So I was just kept, being nice and feeding him. And his name is Butch. He has a beautiful cat. And anybody would just say he's just wild and like don't even go near him. But I knew what was going on inside of him. So, we gave him lots of love, and that's it. He's like the perfect gentleman, the nicest cat. And I remember him seeing his mom, and he said meow, and she said meow, and she left, and he never chased after her again. He just sort of accepted it. And now he's here all the time, and Butch is like a perfect gentleman. He won't take, food from kittens or anything, and he just needed that sort of second mother love. But, understanding that specific thing is priceless when you want to deal with a human or animal.
yeah, absolutely, and I understand totally this notion about societal exhaustion. Trying to fit in with society, trying to run around and conform to normative rules. Now, a lot of it's time wasting. A lot of it's a projection. So it's built up as an artificiality, that this notion of keep up with the Joneses, right? Because if everybody's running around trying to keep up with the Joneses, conforming to certain higher dress standards and higher abilities, while at the core of society there's a lot of rot and decay. I mean, if you go back to, so for example, I don't know, the 1800s or the 1600s, everybody dressed nicer than they do now, but there was still the same mentality, but everybody dressed nicer and they spoke better and whatever, especially in the middle to upper tier society. But yeah, this notion of keep up with the Joneses, well, a lot of autistic people and deep thinkers and busy people, I mean, they're not keeping up with the Joneses in a fashionable way. These people operate on an ideas realm. Okay, they think about ideas. They operate in their head. They have these internal worlds, which you're talking about, that are simulacras of beauty. They're monolithic structures that are unseen, and so they're off doing that, and they don't really understand how mundane processes, normative processes, have a real world impact. When everybody else seems to think that these things that you must do this and you must do that. And I think that's what separates people from the people we read about in history, whether they be leaders or inventors or scientists or great scholars or whatever, these are the people who sat on the hills. These are the people who sat on top of the mountains or ruled vast armies or came up with great intellectual ideas. They're not the people who went about worrying about keeping up with the Joneses. You see, that's the difference, right? Because if they were the people who were keeping up with the Joneses, then they would just be part of a population statistic of Rome had 1 million people at 44 BC. You know what I mean? You don't know who those people are. You only read about the odd one who managed to make it into the books, and he wasn't keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, well, look at Tesla. I mean, he went with his, he felt good, and he was engineering in his garage, like immaculately dressed. Just because it's just the way he felt was right, and him into character as someone would be. It would be absurd to be that well dressed and being in, around machines and things.
But it's also because he has an inherent respect for the forces of nature that he's working with and the ideas that you're working with. And when you have a respect, it goes beyond caring about what other people think about you, because if you worry about what people think about you, then you're literally worrying about the brand of phone that you have, not the functionality, or you're literally worrying about superficial keeping up with the Joneses stuff. But when you actually have an inherent respect, like in your example, with Nikola Tesla working on a machines, immaculately dressed, it's because he's respecting electricity and the forces of nature and the forces of his own mind and the people that preceded him in the electrical world. I mean, it's fronting up that respect to an unseen tether of history, as opposed to what, I don't know, his whoever even saw him at that time. I mean, it wasn't for them.
No, it wasn't. I mean, he was always isolated. In fact, even his house staff were ordered not to make sure that he never sees them in the house. My towels, do what you got to do, but I never want to see you.
Yeah,
so yeah, he did it for himself.
And there's no difference. Yeah, exactly. And there's no difference between him being immaculately dressed in the middle of a machine workshop or whatever, and a shaman in the middle of the Amazon who's dressed with all the headpiece and whatever's going on there, because that's the uniform of respect.
Yeah, it's what you're projecting in order to connect with that energy.
Yeah, it's the uniform of respect, and it depends on your occupation, but it's about respect to something higher. And I mean, in a shaman's case, you have to be a bit of a show person as well. I mean, that's part of the job. So you have to have that, you have to stand out from the crowd. If you don't have the headpiece on or whatever's going on, and you look like a peasant, I mean, you might not stand out in a specific way that you want to stand out when you're dealing with higher drugs or whatever. If you're a high priest in Egypt, you probably want to have that garment on, the white garment or the white sackcloth or whatever, because that's how you show respect to the history and also within your social hierarchy. That's just what you do. Same with politicians today. Politicians don't walk into the forum, of whatever country they're leading naked. I mean, they don't do it. It's because there's standards and there's norms that show respect for your profession, but also the people around you. It's all about circumstance, right? And your respect to your occupation and an unseen tether of history.
Yes, well said. Said, yes.
Yeah, and that's why it's exhausting keeping up with the Joneses, because there's a whole social normative bubble there. That
concept is totally lost within that realm. Yes.
Yeah, it's just an economic policy to keep GDP high, essentially. I mean, it's what it is. It's fun. That's a good topic. I really like that. I operate in my head a lot as well. I hardly notice it, because you're just in this world and you think, oh, yeah, there's people functioning out here doing whatever they're doing. But you see them, they go. That's it. I mean, who cares?
Well, one of the things that you can, if you want it, humanists are really striving for that type of awareness. I mean, most of them of that type of awareness and always learning more and more and searching for all that high level understanding of things and multidimensional understandings and so forth. And I'm having love to offer it to all the transhumanists in the world, and I'm having a very fun, in honor of Autismo's birthday. Autismo was actually created on Halloween night. So funny, it should have been it on Halloween night. So in honor of Autismo's birthday, I'm having a little contest. Winner gets an upgrade, and I called it the Genius Mind DNA decoding. So they'll be able to have sessions where they'll upgrade their mind very, very quickly. To film the before and after and see how that works. It comes from, history, DNA, physics. So let's say the clinical part of where autismo comes from. Everybody loves to upgrade their brain. It doesn't matter if they're inventors or scientists or transhumanists, but it's just anybody who wants to get into that type of consciousness and have an uber awareness of how they can become a more and more powerful brain. Thought that was a fun topic.
Yeah, and where can the people go to enter the competition? How do you do that?
Well, I do have a page on Facebook. I'm known as Catatrix in the Matrix because I'm analyzing the influential matrix. That's what Autismo does. And I will be announcing it, and maybe they could, it'll be very simple, like just send me an email, something like that. Yeah, I'll announce what it consists of and what kind of results they should expect. Something like that, and what has to be done in order to win the competition.
And do you have to wear a hat?
No, you don't have to wear a hat, but it would be really cool though, right? If we had like one of those like hats with all those wires everywhere and make it all, fancy schmancy. That's for, show if you like.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Not necessarily. No medicines involved and no gadgets. That's a good thing.
Actually, yeah. Let's talk about Autismo just for a second more, because it's not an AI. Got AI in the title. It's not an AI. It's a brain. It's a learning machine. Talk to us about the difference between what it is versus an AI.
Yes, artificial intelligence is machine learning. The same way your phone, we call Siri, you say, well, I have an appointment on Thursday. I'd like to go to the, on Thursday. I will say, day's full. Do you go on Monday? Unless you've programmed that, it's not going to choose that. It still has to be programmed. That's what a machine learning is. Unless you've programmed it, it's not able to find to a Monday. So it's actually thinking, programmed enough, it's simulating thought process. But that's artificial intelligence. It's not actual intelligence. Autismo's actual intelligence, why? Because I'm actually extracting entire personality of that person. So I see it's very easy to just clone your personality and stick it in the brain of a robot immediately. And then artificial intelligence would work beyond that. Add to that. But, if artificial intelligence machine learning programmers were to program for the next 10 years, they still wouldn't get to that point. It's personality, triggers, karmic emotions, genetic codes. I don't know if I said triggers. visible belief systems. Imagine that there's a belief system you actually believe, but you don't know you believe it.
Mm.
That's what locks you into something that is hindering you, or it's going into that deep, deep, deep. Not only conscious, which is not what is. But once you've cloned up the personality, and once you lot you can do there, and artificial AI will come after that.
Right, yeah, and that's that
So until
smart
now, everybody
system.
knows him as Autizmo. It's very difficult to actually publish papers, because it is a new science, and I need to it first. I can't call it something exactly, so it's not misunderstood as an already existing science, which is quite funny.
So it's a new
Yeah.
branch of science, but it's not off of AI. It's off of branch of science off of computer learning, or computer learning, or learning.
Um, it's basically physics and biophysics, biochemistry, being it's different mix of sciences in order to accomplish this one goal. So
Well, yeah, as
where do you publish? I will publish in AI journals, but it would also be published in biophysics. It would also be published in biochemistry. It would also be published in physics. It would. I mean, there's just so many areas. The scientific name. I need to invent the scientific name.
yeah, understood.
When you're an inventor, you invent new sciences as well. A lot of people don't know, but have a peer-reviewed published paper on treatments for the onset of muscular sclerosis. He named it protomyonecrosis. So what I'm saying is that muscular sclerosis should be final stages where it's a point of no return. And I'm saying, come on, guys, don't sneeze and call it pneumonia right away. It's the sniffles, then it's flu, then it's bronchitis, then it's pneumonia. Do you see what I mean? There are stages. At these stages, it shouldn't be called MS. It should be called protomyonecrosis. That's curable. That's reversible. The progressive stage is the point of no return. Even slightly progressive stages, there's a point where it's still myonecrosis. That's also where my logic came from understanding mechanisms and motor skills, speech, and but nobody cares. It's like a lot of things out there that amazing things have been published, and it's only the world now is paying attention to everything. Now we have transhumanists that are interested in bringing these things to the world. They're interested in what's going on, and they're promoting what's going on. Just got lost because science and scientific discoveries just sort of were much ignored, but just it's just a lack of awareness, I think.
Yeah, well, there's been a concerted effort by the media monopoly, the financial elites, by the incentives of economics itself, by the fossil fuels industry, the car industry. I mean, there's been a lot of entrenched, and in the military industrial complex as well. There's been a huge number of entrenched pharmaceutical as well. Industries that have, just stumped progress for the sake of profit, and it's been a disaster. I mean, because the legal system is set up in such a way as there's patent walls, there's information walls, and that information wall I mean, imagine the information wall that would have existed if the internet hadn't have come around. I mean, the internet went, has exploded, and we've taken almost for granted now this IT technology, this information technology, where we have this information transfer, and it's enabled a lot of kooky stuff, but it's also enabled a lot of good stuff coming out of through scientific papers, through the transfer of information and ideas and knowledge, and the ability to do things like this.
Even being able to talk to you now, even just being able to talk to people from across the world, and we're meeting people all over the world, and it world seems smaller and smaller, and yeah, it's fantastic. But like every tool, and like what Tesla invented, you can either cook a man's dinner with electricity or cook a man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there was
So
plenty of man cooking going on in the
avoid it.
Inquisition, you know. So yeah, yeah, totally understand that notion. But yeah, we do have certain advantages. But if you actually run the experiment out and you think that the internet wasn't invented, and you go and watch television and you go and watch what the state wanted you to watch and consume what they want you to consume, you can see the old system just underneath the surface, and it's an information hellhole. The only place you really could get it, I mean, the information is you have to literally go into a library and read an encyclopedia and do the research and write a letter and mail it to somebody, and then the mail takes a couple of days to get to somebody and they return a letter. I mean, that is the world that is just brimming under the surface of the internet. It's just there, and it was going to continue, but thank goodness the internet allowed for this explosion, this Cambrian explosion of information transfer, and we have this totally different world now. And it's something that you don't want to go away. You don't want to impair its progress. But yeah, it's the old world is there, and it's still ticking around, and you can see the scams that have popped up. And sometimes it's not just ignorance, and it's not just people aren't interested, but there's a lot of people who just aren't given the advantage, and the internet has opened up a lot of advantage. And with Starlink coming, the whole of Africa will soon be ubiquitously connected to the net. All those mobiles will go online with a lot of internet coverage wherever you go. In one way, super exciting, like you said, like as a tool, as a neutral tool. Super excited for Starlink. Super excited for ubiquitous global Internet of Things. On the other hand, global surveillance, anybody, like you won't be able to escape. Like there will be a sort of global surveillance superstate then. So it's a neutral tool, like you said, and we always talk about neutral tools and how do you wield the tool? How do you can cook dinner or you can cook a man, like you said.
Yeah. By the way, internet was discovered in CERN. Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot
it
of
was
people
a
don't know that.
coalition of like universities and CERN.
Yeah, it was World Wide Web was first discovered in CERN, and they gave it it's pure research, and they gave it for free. And yeah, now we have Google and Yahoo and
Pets.com.
and it became commercialized, and yeah, for mainstream. I mean, the insane amount of data that we can transfer for our work is crazy. Terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of things, just to grab a file that we need for something.
That's why they call it Google, because
So
Google plexes of information, right?
yeah. So wow, it's and one thing I wanted to mention, which I just it is an interesting thought. The process and the tools I use for analyzing an advanced biochemistry calculation in order to get to the DNA, in order to get the result for Autismo, is the same tools analyzing soil, which is interesting. And just like the religions say that, man was made from dirt and mud and so forth. So the same way I analyze soil, the same way we know the cause of disease from the advanced biochemical understandings in humans. So soil, humans, plants, it's the same chemistry or the same tools I'm using in order to understand the chemistry. So, you know, for instance, I'll go one step further and, analyze, ancient soil, and uh, maybe there's something there. Who knows? Maybe there's stories there. Like, we're walking on stories. We're walking on, millions and millions of years of history. Just like water is primordial, so is soil. But isn't it interesting that in order to find the cause of disease and to understand the advanced biochemistry of a human, you need the same tools as the soil?
Yeah, it's super interesting, and we're locked into a closed system pretty much without, it's like there's not too much that's left this biome, really, and maybe some gases and stuff, but yeah, really it's a closed loop of animals and plants and rotating plates that, and there's water here, and yeah, I'm not wholly surprised that there would be structural similarities between us and soil. I mean, when we die, we become food for worms. Those worms, then it's just a cycle of life, right? So, yeah. So maybe you'll find something in the woolly mammoth, or because there's plenty of those guys up in Alaska that are being unfrozen at a rapid rate, and it's a treasure trove if you're a what do they call them? Not archaeologists, the other one. But yeah, if these bone hunters or whatever, yeah, it's an absolute treasure trove. So maybe we get up to Alaska, find one of these woolly mammoths, and just have a look. I mean, dinosaurs. Maybe we can find the mythical the mosquito. It's been frozen in the tree sap. I mean, that would be cool. Yeah, but we could let's see how far we can stretch this out. We can take it. It would be.
But as soon as I get results, you'll be the first one to know. I'm definitely going to announce it to all the transhumanists in the world and inventors in the world, because that is big news. That is, and I need some agricultural experts to know which part of the tree is best to take and how to extract certain liquids and resins safely, not to hurt the tree, and so forth. So
you need someone with a deep knowledge of the cypress olive tree, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I know just the person. No, I really don't. But but
well, to extract resin and to extract exactly what you would need, like what substances would you need to analyze in order to get the same result I get as for a human.
I would be interested to see what you can do with mushrooms and fungi. Mushrooms are a very close relative, well, not close, but a relative of us, and they have a lot of amazing stories, and they have a lot of amazing compositions, and they're one of the most, this fungus and mushrooms are some of the most amazing plants ever. I would love to see what you could do with mushrooms. Those are just truly incredible creatures, plants, whatever the hell they are.
Okay. Yeah. What? Once I get the first results of trees, then it's just like you just start thinking of like how many plants and how many different types of fruits, vegetables. I don't know. They just start analyzing and seeing what the soul of it is. Like, if it has thoughts and feelings, does it not have a spirit?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing with human consciousness. I mean,
is
it just a biochemical? Is it just a biological mess, or is there something innate or deeper about consciousness? Until we even understand ourselves, I don't want to even start to speculate. Well, no, you know what I mean. Like it's hard to speculate about other plants and animals and other creatures on the planet, because we have no idea what's going on with ourselves. And it's Was it God, or was
Definitely.
it the Anunnaki, or was it Hermes, or was it Ra? I mean, is it Abrahamic? What is that divine consciousness that's within us? I'm not sure how divine it is. I mean, it's an interesting notion, but we are and we are a quite destructive species when you're a selfish, destructive species on the collective. But I reckon we're going to find a hypothesis, throw it out there randomly for fun, to thought experiment, whatever. We're probably just going to find that like in the future, we're all heading to one of the affinities or whatever they call it in transhumanism is this hive mind. Everybody uploads their mind to the internet, and then we sort of become a hive mind collective. Well, I think there's probably some sort of, if not chemical, some sort of other hive mind instinct between the animals and creatures and plants and etc. that goes on a substrate. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, again, basic communication methods between animals is well established. We can hear it for ourselves. The dogs bark in the street. They bark at each other. That's some sort of communication. Okay. Cats meowing. Okay. Everybody knows that. That's not controversial. If they don't, you go to the doctor and say, hey, you can't bark, right? And they fix them up or play with the voice box or whatever. But that's not controversial. That's well established. That's established throughout history. That's not even a talking point. So birds twitter in the trees. Now we know that definitely that there's chemical communication between plants, especially in these rainforests where they have,
Definitely.
like you were saying with the tumor. You get a tumor, or there's an advancing, some people are cutting down some trees, so they send the signals and they say, get ready, you might be cut down, or whatever, or go into stasis, or start, it's a tactic sometimes in horticulture, agriculture. If you want a plant to throw seeds out early, you hit them a bit and damage them a little bit, just not too much. You damage them a bit, and that stimulates all the stress hormones or whatever stress stimuli, and then they produce seeds because they think they're gonna die, so they produce seeds because they want to procreate really quickly. So it's an established way of producing extra seeds or something. So yes, there's well established there, but then what's right underneath that level, and that's what you're targeting, and that's very interesting. And if we come up with the fact that it's like this hive mind thing, if there is a super collective organism that has been coined Mother Nature throughout history by timeless poets, that's sitting on that substrate, that's going to be very, very interesting.
Well, I don't see why Autismo won't be able to eventually have collective scan quanta collectively one day. I just need a more sophisticated and stronger device that could scan, but instead of it being close up to your face and scanning only an individual, why not a room of people and seeing what the behavior, like what the dynamic is in that room? That'd be crazy.
Yeah, that would be crazy. That's an Orwellian
Like,
thought.
well, it can be done. I mean, if you can pick up one quanta, you can pick up two or three or four, and that it's just like this. Think about it. Aren't you different alone and different with certain people? And perhaps some people bring out the worst in you, and some people bring out the best in you. And certain environments make you act in a certain way. So, you go to the office, and if you like your coworkers, you're going to be productive, and vice versa. So, it would pick up the consciousness of one personality. Like, what is the one personality that's happening in that room? What,
Yeah,
you know?
and
'Cause
and and
when
that
you're in a room, now you've got one type of, is it are we on the same wavelength? Are we on the same page, or is there always conflict? And then so you'd see all this different conflict and this
So
like
kind of
collective personality.
a primitive version of what you're talking about, or a different way of analyzing what you're talking about, would be a heat map, right? So when you scan the heat map of a room, there's kind of you can kind of see
Right.
the dynamics. Like somebody who's stressed, their heat their heat map would show higher levels of, because they're sweating on their palms and they're more nervous and twitchy and they're doing whatever, and there might be a degree hotter than everybody else, and or whatever, and you're just doing this just on a brain functioning level as opposed to just an analysis of somebody's body
Not even a
temperature.
brain functioning level, an influential matrix level. The influential matrix, when I mean influential matrix and emotional matrix, is not a brain wave. It is basically all the emotional energy and thought process that has nothing to do with the brain.
It would
So
be,
the influence, it means everything that's ever influenced you in your entire life.
yeah, yeah, it makes sense. And if you did it on a congress, like a congress of baboons, on our prime, like on our close primates, do you think that that would have a different impact than if done on humans?
Must. It must, because what it's, for instance, remember when I said I could literally, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I was definitely thinking it. I could literally like clone your personality right now, stick it in the brain of a robot, and he's you. And I haven't even programmed further. I just sort of extracted it and say, okay, these results are that person, and now the robot is that person, basically. Um, so it's very individual. So wouldn't it be funny if you uh, analyzed gorillas or and found out that we're really not that different. Emotionally, we're not.
And DNA
We're not
wise, we're not.
DNA wise, we're not. Emotionally, we're not different than animals. We're not different. It's when it comes to emotions, but we just have more information. And how do we know that animals don't have just as much information? They just don't know how to tell you. Like maybe they already know. Literally, like depending on what I'm wearing, my animals know whether we're going to on a walk or I'm going to work, just by what I'm wearing. So they know that if I'm wearing this and I got my gloves on and I'm cleaning the garden or whatever, they know. And as soon as they see me dressed a specific way, they know that it's time for me to leave. They've analyzed all this. Like they know this.
Other smart creatures would be like dolphins, for example.
Definitely. Would love to know what a dolphin is thinking.
Yeah, and that
I just
reminds.
can't wait to go around the world. I want to go around the world and analyze all these different animals, go from domestic to I've done a horse the other day. I love horses. They're autistic. Horses are autistic. There's a lot of studies that they are, and very spiritual animals. Not that all animals are not spiritual. It's just they have some sort of deeper connection. And yeah, I guess I have to go to domestic first and then go to wildlife. But I am coming out with devices, and I figured out a way where it could be sort of, not expensive so that everybody can use it. Everyone could use it on their animals, and everyone could use it for their loved ones. And more and more research can be done. Like for instance, they're using it in hospitals for understanding the psychological connection between the patient's disease and their thinking and emotions. So like in that way, for psychological point of view. um, and it's just used in so many different ways now, and I've lost count of where it's being implemented in biotechnology, in Um, depending on you could limit the programming to the point where you just need this bit of information and it just turns into something completely different. Like you don't need to know the deep dark secrets of your pet unless, don't know, you want that. I mean, do you
Yeah.
want to know like karma and everything? Like it's okay. Fine. That's like, some work. But everyone should be able to sort of have that initial understanding of their pet. Like they know the result of the behavior, but not the cause and not the internal world. So yeah, my little monsters are going to be uh, they guide me a lot. They tell me how to make things better. So we're making an event with veterinary. We're starting to. The vets were really, really excited. They're like, "You got something like that?" I go, "Yeah, sure." So we're gonna make a little private event where people are gonna come with their dogs, like problematic dogs, where the vet is not. It's not easy for the vet to put an injection, or the dog is like way too scared to uh, trust anyone, or just whatever behavior is difficult for a vet to handle. And yeah, so we're gonna have a little pet party where uh, the vet's gonna give us his opinion and probably guide me and help me to do it better and better. I mean, it can only get better and better. It's already phenomenal to the point it is now. Imagine it in like I can't imagine it in a year's time or 2 years' time. Um, the fact that the way I described it last time, like photography, photography, written in the light. So the same way, all your memories are written in the light and images. Uh, so the story of your life is written in your light, right? The bundles of light, which is quanta. So, um, and I said that why? I'm thinking of so many things at the same time. So, yeah,
Cool.
I think
Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool. Well,
doggy event coming up soon. So,
yeah, that's gonna be cool. Yeah, I can think of, I would like to know why zebra is so undomesticatable. They seem to be very stubborn as a mule, so to speak. But at least mules, Napoleon went across the Alps on a mule, but he painted in a stallion, But zebras, I don't know. They just seem to be very stubborn creatures. Anyway, it's been really good. Is there anything else you wanted to tell us about your adventure? Because you're quite accomplished.
um, well, I guess a lot of people already know this, but he did. I did enter him in the ICANN Canada Awards, and he won 3 gold medals, a Special Inventors Award, and a Genius Award. And it was a big honor to be written in the books from peer-reviewed. It's peer-reviewed awards because there's like a panel of like several judges, I don't know, 30, 40 judges that are from all different sciences that are evaluating the inventors properly. And therefore, that's how people found me, and that's how people, managed to understand what Autismo is. And I'm very excited, and I will be updating everybody and yourself. Definitely, the more results I get, the more I'll be excited to announce them. And yeah, I'm ready with my lab kit. I'm just need the right person to extract from the tree, and I'll be here, like definitely reading out the results to you. That's for sure.
All right, cool. Well, we're excited for that, for
Thank you so
Detonation
much.
exclusive. Yeah, that's going to be really exciting. So thank you very much, Dr. Catherine Catatrix, for coming on all the way there from Cyprus in the middle of the Mediterranean somewhere. When are you going back to Egypt?
Gee, everyone is asking me that. I not sure. Very soon.
What's your
Egypt
favorite?
is my second.
What's your favorite pyramid?
My favorite pyramid. Wow. Geez, they're all. I love the Sphinx. Why? Because the Akashic Records apparently is in the left paw of the Sphinx. That is the ancient understanding. And Akashic Records, Quanta, it's all in the same category. So Akashic Records is like the history of everything, yeah.
Cool.
So I
Wow.
would see the Sphinx as a temple, yeah. But the Giza, sure, why not?
Yeah, Giza. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. The Great Pyramids there. Yeah, and there's yeah. I've never been to Egypt, but I hear it's pretty cool. I'd like to go see the Valley of the Kings, Valley of the Queens. You know, there's even modern day Egypt, just the normal city. You know, you'd have that ancient and that new feel. I mean, the Islamic section is about 200 years old now, so that's got a lot of history behind it anyway. It would be just a fascinating place to come and have a look. A little bit jealous that you get to, you know, just a boat ride away from Port Alexandria, right?
Yeah, now they're actually making very convenient flights from a different airport so that we can get to Alexandria very easily. And yeah, it's like an hour and a half to Cairo. It's nothing. I can get to Cairo faster than I can get to the other side of the island. So it's crazy. And
Yeah.
so next interview, I would love to talk more about Egypt and the ancients and the secrets and the alchemy behind what they had. Because as everybody may know me, I'm also a mystic. So it's science and mysticism. It's just another type of science. And yeah,
Yep.
so
All
Egypt
right.
next
Cool. Yeah,
time.
we'll leave that for the next show. But thank you very much, Catatrix. It's been fantastic. Yeah, and we'll anticipate those results. And good luck getting Autismo out there. And go and check out her Facebook page if you're interested in entering the competition to upgrade your mind.
Catatrix in the Matrix.
That's it.
Signing
That's the
off.
one. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Detonation, putting death out of business.